Hi everyone, Jesse here with etrailer. Today we'll be taking a look at and I'll show you how to install the Roadmaster custom fit base plate on our 2018 Ford Flex. The base plate is the structural mounting point for which you're going to install the rest of your flat toe components. So let's take a closer look at it. As you can see here, we have the removable arms. So I'll get everything disconnected. Today we have ours hooked up to the Nighthawk by Roadmaster. This should work with almost any of the tow bars out there on the market. You just need to look into it and see if you need to put some adapter ends on your tow bar. But as I said, this arm is removable. You just pull this pin out, give it a quarter turn, and it'll kind of spring-loaded pop out for you. Built into the base plate is a place to attach your safety cables, which is really nice. You'll have that on both sides. And there's also a place to mount your 6-pole. There's a little bracket here, so 6-pole is one of those things that's very necessary to have with your flat toe. It's nice that they have it mounted there. The breakaway switch, they don't really put a place to mount it, but with the bumper right here, there was actually a threaded hole. So I just found a bolt that would thread in there and mounted it up, and that works perfectly fine. There are a number of other components that you will need or are absolutely necessary to get your vehicle set up to be flat-toed. For example, I mentioned the 6-pole here, that's for your diode wiring, along with the braking system, and you also need safety cables and a tow bar. So setting up your vehicle for flat-towing can get to be a lot. Just reach out to us if you have any questions or concerns. If you're looking to set up your vehicle to be flat-toed, we do this every day, so we'd be happy to help you get set up. There's a couple more things that aren't essential to every flat toe, but in particular the Ford Flex. Ford does recommend that you add a battery disconnect on to cut the power from the battery while you're flat towing it. And then this base plate does sit on the low side on our Flex, so if you have a taller motorhome like our neighbor has today, you will want to add on a high-low adapter, because you want everything to be as flat as possible. But other than that, the installation process with this base plate does involve removing the fascia, and you're most likely installing some other flat toe components at the same time. So if it's not something that you're looking to do yourself, check out our dealer locator. You can find someone local to you that would be happy to get this set up for you. If you are looking to install this base plate yourself, then follow along and I'll walk you through the process. We'll begin our installation underneath our hood here. We have a plastic panel or cover that we need to remove. So there's going to be a series of hardware holding it in. We'll start with these plastic clips. You can use a tool like this or just a flathead screwdriver to pop it off. We have 2 of those. And once you get those removed, we'll move on to the 10mm bolts. One on the outside on both sides. So our bolt was a little seized up, so I had to get some pliers to hold the back side of the, I guess it's just a pop nut, but hopefully yours isn't like that. But otherwise, if you are having that issue, just use some pliers and get a grip on that. But once we have the 10mm bolts removed, we can move on to these 5.5mm screws and get those removed. And with the last screw out, we'll take this off and set it aside. Now I'll take a plastic trim tool, and we have to remove this center piece that goes all the way across. So just get in with your trim tool, and carefully pry until it pops, and then just work your way down, check to see if the clips are holding. We'll set that aside. Now with that out of our way, we can remove these 10mm bolts that are holding our grill in place. So just 2 on it, both on the outside. With those bolts removed, we can just firmly pull out to unclip the grill. Then we'll set it aside. On top of our core support, we'll have 2 push pin fasteners. Ours is actually already missing one, so we only have one, but I'll show you where the other one will be. Put this one out of the way. So that one's right there, and then there should be another one right here. Now we got to work in our wheel well here. We have some 5.5mm screws to remove. There's going to be 3 in total. Once you have those 3 screws out, there's going to be a push pin fastener. Just pop the center out of it, and then the whole thing will come out. So once we get the wheel wells out on both sides, we have 3 more push pin fasteners along the bottom here. Now with an extra set of hands, I have my friend Daniel here to help me. We're gonna remove the fascia, starting on the outside. Should just be held in by some clips. So just carefully work your way towards the center. And just go 1 clip at a time, get it all popped loose. Then we'll have to lift it up a little bit. Then before we go pulling it out, we will have to unplug our fog lights here. There's a push pin tab on the side here. Get that unplugged. Work that out. Now we'll set our fascia safely aside. Now we need to get our mounting brackets set up. So we'll start with this upper piece here. So these are side specific. You'll want the hole on the outside of your frame. And we're going to take one of the long bolts in the kit and a flat washer. Slide that down, and then this is going to slide through our subframe just like that. We'll leave that there for now. Then there's a large hole back here. We'll take our big spacer block, slide it up. Then we want this to be centered, so you will have to kind of rotate it and just get it as centered as possible. We'll take a smaller 1/2-inch bolt, drop it down that top hole, and get it to line up and drop down like that. Now we need to put this bracket on, so you'll notice it has kind of a curve to it. You want to match that up with the curve on our subframe. And for our front bolt, we're going to slide the spacer block on top of it. Get that all lined up. And then with this one, we'll put a flat washer, a split washer, and a nut on it. Sometimes you can get it to kind of hold itself in place. All of our hardware will end up getting some red thread locker, but I'm just going to bolt everything up loosely so we can get everything lined up, and then I'll remove the nuts and put that thread locker on there. Now we have this thick washer that will line up with our hole in this bracket here. Depending on your kit, sometimes these are pretty tight, so you may want to just hammer it into place before you get everything lifted up. But mine slid right on, so I'll get that pushed into place. Then we have this larger flat washer. Get that. And you want to make sure everything's sitting flush, or else you won't be able to get the hardware threaded on. And then we'll once again take a flat washer and a split washer and top that off with a nut. Now for our front bolt here, we're actually going to remove the washers and the nut because our base plate is going to slide up there, and then we'll be installing this hardware under the base plate. So just set that aside for now. And then before we lift our base plate up into its position, we're actually going to cut this air dam here. So I just have a pair of tin snips, and we'll cut it off. You can kind of mock it up, see where it's going to be hitting, and then chop that off. Now we can slide our base plate into place. Daniel's back again to help me out. And ours is pretty tight as far as up here on our bumper is. So we may have to do some trial and error and hitting it with a dead blow just to work it into position. Now, after some calculated hitting with the dead blow, we were able to get one nut started on this side. Then we went to the other side, made sure we can get a nut started on that side. And then at this point, we can put our red thread locker onto our hardware and then slide on our flat washer, split washer, and our nut. Now we'll install a bolt with a flat washer through our tabs here. Slide it through. If you're having issues getting those lined up, you could just go ahead and tighten down that bottom nut to get it to kind of suck up into place. And then we'll take a flat washer and a split washer and thread on a nut. So now what we'll do is tighten down everything that we've installed. We still do have a hole here to drill and some hardware to put in there, but I want to snug everything up. That way we know where that hole needs to be. So I have a 19 millimeter socket. Well, I have two 19 millimeter sockets. Getting to these can be kind of tricky, so you'll probably need a wrench for at least one of them. Now that hole that I just talked about, we're going to be drilling that out with a 1/2 inch drill bit. So just line everything up and start drilling. Now we'll take our handle nut, and one thing I recommend is thread your bolt in and out. Make sure it's smooth, because sometimes some paint or weld can get in there and make the threads kind of hard to deal with, but thread it in and out, and that'll clean it out. And then we'll just slide through this front hole here, get everything lined up. We'll take a bolt and a split washer and get that threaded on. And we'll take our 19 millimeter socket and tighten that down. Now we'll take our torque wrench and torque everything down to the specifications in the instructions. Once you have everything torqued down, you can come to the handle portion of your handle nut. Just wiggle it back and forth, and eventually it'll break off. And at this point, while the fascia is still removed, it's a good idea to install any other flat toe components you might have. For example, diodes or your braking system. That's what we're going to do right now. We will have to do some trimming on the fascia before we can get it reinstalled. So we'll come back and show you what we cut out. Now what I would do next is kind of mock up the fascia, see where you need to cut to get around everything. But with ours, it's already damaged on this lower grill here. It's completely broken off on the top and not attached on the bottom. So I'm just going to cut this entire piece out, because if I tried to cut it nice and clean, it's just not going to work in our situation. So as I said, mock yours up so you can get a nice clean cut. But with ours, we're going to cut it all off. All what's left is to reinstall the fascia. It's really just the opposite of how we took it off. But otherwise, that's going to do it for our look at and installation of the Roadmaster custom fit base plate on our 2018 Ford Flex.